Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Mindset Masterclass. My name is Tanya, and I am your host this evening, or during the day if you're watching the recording. This is a very big topic. There is just so much information to get through. And at first, hello there. At first, I was thinking that it could be done pretty well in, an hour. And then when I started to pull it all together, there is a lot to get through. So what I will do is get started and we'll see how we go. And if there are any questions, if you're watching this live, then we can get through it at the end. So I'll just start to share my screen there. So here we go. Let's get into this. So like I said, there is a lot to get through. And the reason why I thought it was really important to look at your mindset directly after the Great Goals Masterclass is that you can be really, really good at setting goals and writing them down and this, that, and the other. But if your mindset isn't there, then you're just not going to get anything done, really. Like it's, you will find reasons not to do things. You will procrastinate. You will let things go. And they really do go hand in hand. Like you need to know the practicalities of how to set a good goal, but you also need to work through any of those blocks that will be holding you back. And trust me, like it doesn't mean that once you achieve one goal and you clear a lot of different mindset stuff that you're never going to have anything again. I mean, stuff comes up constantly when we do things, especially if we're challenging ourselves and we're pushing ourselves in a new direction. So it's really, really good to have these things in your toolkit. So when you do come up against them in the future, you know how to deal with it. You can just get to the point where you're like, this is just my mind. I'm going to work through it and deal with it. I know what this is all about, and I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm just going to work with it. So with that in mind, so the things that we're going to look at tonight, we're going to start with your mind. So why it can be your best friend and your biggest enemy, and why we want it to be more of a friend. We're going to go through how to work with different mindset nasties that might come up. Some three very, very common ones that I find that come up again and again, just in day-to-day life even. It might not necessarily be as you're working towards a goal, but it can be just in your interactions with people. Aligning to your goals, why that's important. We're going to do something called reduce the excuse. I've got some time management tips for you as well towards the end there, just to give you some idea on how to structure your day if that's something that you're struggling with, because often when we feel organized or we know how to approach a task, then that really, really helps. And then we'll wrap it up with just some tips of, when you know all of this, sometimes you get to the point where it all just feels too hard, and just some little self-care tips for that. So let's get into it. So to start with, you've got your mind being your best friend and your biggest enemy. So your mind is really powerful. If you think about everything that it does, talking about the brain and how it works in your body, I mean, it's just sending these little signals across my body right now saying, move your hands, without me even thinking about moving my hands. It physically digests your food, it helps you breathe, like all these things that your body and your mind do without you realizing it. And then at the same time, there's a lot of things that your mind will do without you realizing it. And a lot of that is, it can be a lot of negative self-talk. And, you know, your brain isn't trying to be a bitch. The sooner that you realize that your mind is just trying to keep you safe, the easier it can be to work through a lot of blocks that you might have. So if you think about back in caveman times, you know, we had all these big fight or flight responses to things, especially if there was a saber-toothed tiger coming towards us, and our mind would just tell us, you know, we got to run, we got to get out of here. And at the same time, in this modern life, we have a lot of different things that feel like that saber-toothed tiger. So it could be the idea of you wanting a new job, but the idea of putting yourself out there and applying for things and going for interviews and starting a new workplace just feels so scary to you, because it's safe in your current job. Even if you don't like it, it's still really safe. And so your mind is trying to do this thing where it's keeping you safe in that old job, even though it might not be quite serving you at this moment anymore. And so you have that same type of response that we would have had back in caveman times when you saw the saber-toothed tiger. And so your mind is just telling you to run from this new job. It can also, you know, things like that can happen in, you know, in your relationship. Suddenly you get scared and you want to leave, or I don't know, like even in a good way, actually, like your brain can be telling you to not to walk down a dark path. So that's a good way that your brain is keeping you safe. But when it comes out in these different ways where it's stopping you from having a fulfilling relationship or stopping you from having an amazing job, that's when we need to work on it a little bit more. So in those instances, you might feel like your brain is starting to say a lot of these things like, you know, you aren't good enough and you'll never make it, and who do you think you are? And this inner critic is gnawing away at you. And, you know, it can become really debilitating when you let your inner critic take over. And so all it really wants you to do is to just give it a response. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it is this thing of learning to work with these voices so that you do turn it into an inner cheerleader. And I found this picture. It's like, I never thought I was a bully until I heard how I speak to myself. And I think I owe myself an apology. And this is definitely true for a lot of ways, because there is the saying of, you know, you might, you know, speak to yourself the way you would speak to a best friend, because a lot of the time we do have all these really, really negative thoughts in our brain, and saying all these things like you were stupid, you were dumb, you did that all wrong. Whereas if a friend was telling you that story, you would be really supportive. So the idea is to start to bring some positive thoughts into your life and your mind. And as we go through this tonight, I will talk a little bit more about focusing more on positives and how you can debunk some of these ideas and excuses. So you can start to have this dialogue with your inner critic and start to turn down the dial on it. So I can't guarantee that you'll ever stop this inner critic, because it still comes up for me personally in things, but I've learned how to turn down the dial so it's not as loud, and that I can shut it up a lot easier than I used to. So let's go through, and, you know, I'd love it if you could, after a few months of using these techniques, you know, if you could get in touch with me and tell me how you're going and whether you feel like you're getting the same result from it that I have. So what I would like to do with you tonight is to take you from the first panel over here, where you've got the reflection in the mirror saying you're weird, you're ugly, you're not good enough, smashing it out, and then being able to walk away and say, I'm fabulous. You know, clearly she can't see that. So this is what we're doing. We're smashing our inner critic, and we're just bringing out the inner cheerleader who just feels like you're fabulous and that you can do anything. So a lot of people will talk about how they self-sabotage and procrastinate. I've definitely done both of these things many, many times in my life. I remember when I was doing my undergrad and I would procrastinate like crazy and, do the assignment at the very last minute. Sometimes I would even have projects at work where I would have all this time to do it, and then right at the end I'd stress myself out and get it done really quickly. And there are a few reasons for this. One of them was that I realized I was addicted to the adrenaline rush of getting something done under pressure. And the other one is that if I did something in a really short amount of time and got an okay result, then I could tell myself that, yeah, I only got a credit because I did it in a day. And it was a way of really managing my expectations on some level, because there was this fear of, what if I'm not good enough and I spent all this time on the assignment and I still get a credit. So by doing it within a few hours and getting a good result, that kind of gave me a reason as to why my marks probably weren't as high as they could have been. Because ultimately, I was afraid of failure in that respect, and of being seen as a fraud and not belonging in that degree. And at the same time, self-sabotage, again, is very, very similar to this reason. Well, the reasons behind it are very similar, because there was a time when I was promoted in my job. If you've heard me speak before, sometimes I mention about the moment when I started to switch from my old career into becoming a life coach. And that was when I was in my boss's office and he offered me a promotion. And inside I was just thinking, I don't want this, but I don't know what I want. And then that kick-started this whole exploration and has led to me being here today. But I remember taking that role and then feeling like I wasn't good enough to do it. And so I would constantly self-sabotage myself when it came to working on projects in that job. I would not send emails when I should have to people involved in projects. I would do things very last minute, and I would do all this stuff so I could try and validate the voice in my head which told me I wasn't good enough. And again, so that it really came down to this feeling of just low self-esteem. And I never really thought about it at the time. I thought I would, people talk about good self-esteem in that, I had a pretty good, body image, of myself and everything else. And so for that, I thought I had, I would have came across confident. So came across as someone who would have had good self-esteem, but deep down I was self-sabotaging and procrastinating because I didn't think I was good enough. And when I was doing some postgrad studies, and I actually dedicated the time and managed my time a lot better with assignments and wasn't procrastinating, I actually proved that I was quite good. I was getting really high marks and engaged a lot more in the subject matter and got a lot more out of it because I had this belief that I actually belonged where I was and that I could do it, and I was willing to do the work to get the best result out of it. So, by that stage, I had a much better sense of self. But yeah, it definitely did come from this big feeling of fear. And for me, this is the number one thing that holds people back. It's fear. And, it's that same old fear of the saber-toothed tiger. Like I was saying at the start of the call, it's the fear of starting something new and the fear of not being good enough. And the fear of not being able to do something quite right. Many different fears. There's fear of failure, fear of success, that's a big one. It's like, what if I actually get everything that I've dreamed of? What then? What do I do then? What if people might not like me if I'm successful? It's all those little weird things that that creep into your mind. There are the fears that everybody is laughing at you or judging you. So, you know, perhaps you really loved singing as a child. Here we go. It's another story. I'm telling all these stories out of the vault. But back when I was about 12 years old, I was learning guitar, and there was a guitar concert. It was a very small little group. And I was playing Kumbaya and singing. And I had singing lessons for this since I'd been about 5. So I mean, I could sing, could carry a tune, still can. But I was really, really nervous because it was the first time I was playing an instrument in front of people. And so I started off key. And there was this other teacher there. It wasn't my teacher, but another teacher who stopped me, told me I was singing badly, made me start again. And it was mortifying. Like, I was only 12. And then when the concert was over, she came up to me and she goes, I hope you didn't mind me stopping you, but you sounded bad and you were just getting worse. And so that moment affected me for so long. Like, I didn't want to sing in public anymore after that, because I just thought I'd be doing something wrong and end up doing it worse. And again, with tasks at work and things like that. So it was this thing of something judging me throughout my life, which followed me until I cleared it out of my system. But yeah, definitely that can be a very big one, where you feel like you're doing things wrong and people are judging you. And like I said, fear of doing it wrong, fear of looking stupid, and then fear of being seen as a fraud is there again. Now, I don't know how many of these that you identify with. There are many more, and I encourage you to actually write down everything that you feel like you've had a fear of, or that you can resonate with as well, so that you can reflect back on it at a later stage. So when fear is good, you know, it does have its purpose. It protects us from dangers. Like, don't walk down that dark alley. Don't swim in the rough ocean. That person looks suspicious. Like, cross the road. Don't drink, you know, the milk that smells funny, or, you know, the food that smells bad, because you'll get sick, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I'm not saying don't listen to your fear, but listen to it when it counts, when it's putting you in actual physical danger. But when it's a false fear, which is something that will actually, you know, stop you from moving ahead in your life, then I'm saying don't listen to your fear. So, you know, if fear is coming into your mind and is telling you you're not qualified for that job, stay home rather than go traveling around the world, you'll make a fool of yourself, no one will love you, so, you know, why bother finding a relationship, and so on and so forth. This is when the fear is stopping us from realizing our potential. And so, you know, we want to talk to our fear and say thank you to it when it's actually rejecting us from something which is a real danger. But we want to just calm it down, and when it's bringing up these types of statements, and let it say, hey, look, mate, go do your job and keep me out of danger. But right now you're just overstepping your boundaries, and, you know, this is not your job. So let's work through this. Because if you let fear stop you from moving forward in your life, you'll just be boring. You'll be doing the same old. You'll be bored. It'll start to ripple out, and you can often see people who like a bitter, or they get really snippy with their partner, things like that, because they're just quite unhappy, because they let their fear stop them from doing what they wanted to do, taking charge of their life, speaking up for themselves. So we don't want fear to do that, to keep us away from the good. We want it to keep us from all the dangerous bad stuff, but we don't want to keep it from the good. So one good way to actually start to get into your relationship with fear is creating the dialogue with it. So Liz Gilbert, she wrote Eat, Play, Love, which is also written in this book called Big Magic. And I encourage you to read it whenever I feel a little stuck with my creativity. Then I pick this up and I give it another read through, because it just has a lot of really good points in it. And it's not necessarily, it's the subtitle is Creative Living Beyond Fear. It's not really about people who identify as arty and creative. It's just about creating your own life and going forward and creating the life that you want. So that's why I feel like it's a really valuable book. But she talks about writing her fear letter at the beginning of every creative project. And she says that it goes something like this. Dearest Fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. Apparently your job is to induce complete panic whenever I'm about to do anything interesting, and may I say you are superb at your job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must. But I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in this vehicle for all of us, so make yourself at home. But understand this, creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the way. I recognize and respect that you are part of this family, and so I will never exclude you from our activities. But still, your suggestions will never be followed. You're allowed to have a seat and you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the roadmaps. You're not allowed to suggest detours. You're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. So I would like you to do the same thing. Now, there is a workbook that accompanies this class, and we won't be stopping to do the activities if you're doing this live, but you can definitely go back and sit down and give yourself the space to do all the activities that are outlined in there. Or if you are watching the recording, you can stop it now and do the activity and then come back to it. It's up to you. But the first thing that I have put in there is to start you opening a dialogue with your fear, because you want to acknowledge it and give it space to express itself, rather than ignoring it or try and push it down. Because you know when if there's a child, for instance, or who wants your attention, and you try ignoring it and it just keeps like wanting you to look at it, wanting you to show something, but the sooner you turn around to that child and go, what would you like to show me? And they show you the picture that they've drawn and they describe it, and then they're happy, and then they go off and they play and they do the next thing. So that's what we want to do with our fear. We want to give it some attention, ask it what's on its mind, and then it can go off and do its own little thing over there. So I've asked you to write your own letters. So the first one is from your fear to you, where you can start, dear, your name, this is your fear. And write out all the ideas that come up to you about why you think something isn't a good idea or that you can't do it. And then sign it off, love from your fear. And then you can have a little rebuttal and you can say, dear fear, thank you for your letter and for the points that you have raised. But these are the reasons why I feel like they're unfounded. So, and then write down a rebuttal and talk about why you think that all the real reasons why you can actually go ahead and do it, and why fear is just a little bit out of line there, and then sign it off with your name. So in that chance, you've given yourself to air everything that's going on in your head and your mind, and then you've actually given yourself some reasons as to why you are fabulous, and go on. And then you can feel like the fear can actually slip away a little bit more, because it can just be like, oh yeah, cool. All right, well, now that you've said that, I'm just going to go over here and sit in the corner for a while. So that's a really powerful exercise to do. Following on from that is what I call reduce the excuse. So, gosh, there are so many different excuses that we can come up for things, and you know, and you can always find something that you can do instead of the thing that you're meant to be doing. I definitely know with a lot of people, and I did it too, when it came to studying, suddenly the house needed to be cleaned because it seemed like something practical that you could do, like cleaning the house. It's something you need to do. But it meant that, you know, I can't study because I need to clean the house. So definitely it can be like, the house is dirty. Well, it's okay. It's not going to die. You won't die if the house is too dirty. So these are maybe the top 10 most common excuses that people can come up with for things. Like, it will be difficult. It'll be hard. You know, I don't want to do something that's hard and put in that effort because, you know, I'm just so busy and la-di-da-di-da-di-da. It is risky. Like, maybe it's a financial risk, maybe it's a physical risk. It will take too long. This is the thing that happens to me when clients might come and they say they want to study something, but they're like, oh, but you know, that's what, 3-4 years of study, it'll take too long. But hey, you know what, like, even if you are a mature age student, and you start studying like in your 40s, you're still going to get to like a particular age. So say you start studying at 40, you are going to become 44. So you might as well turn 44 with a degree under your belt rather than not have a degree. So, you know, that's a good way to look at things. I'm too young or too old to do something. I don't deserve it. Again, it's that thing of, you know, what good am I? Like, I haven't worked for this. I haven't earned it. I don't feel like it's valuable. I'm valuable. Number 6, I can't afford it. This is, you know, a big one, you know, and it can be an excuse that you throw out there because you just don't want to do something. But also if it's, you know, like something that you really need and want in your life, like you really want to buy yourself a house, but you think you can't afford it, you know, it's a way of pushing you back and keeping you in a cycle. Again, it relates back to number 5, where you might think that you actually don't deserve to own something. You know, perhaps you grew up in a family where they always rented, and so you feel like you don't deserve to actually own anything, and so you create the excuse that you can't afford it as well, just to try and keep you safe and push you down. Number 7, I don't know how, or I'm not smart enough as well. Again, that can relate to number 1 of it will be difficult. I don't have time. It's, you know, we live such busy lives, but if you monitor your time, and there are apps that you can get on your phone to do this, or you can just write it down. But an app is great because it then graphs it for you. You know, you can really see how much time you might spend just sitting watching TV, and you know, you just take 1 hour a day, and suddenly you've got 7 hours in the week to work on something. There's your time. My phone has recently been sending me my screen time reports every week, and it is quite amazing sometimes how much time I've spent just playing games. So that's really helped to curtail that for me. I'm too scared. Again, that relates to, it is risky. Being too scared to do something rather than you know, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You're letting that fear keep you small and keep you fake safe. And number 10, it hasn't been done before. But you know what? If you think of a lot of things in life that were invented and had never been done before, like we would never have electricity, we would never have cars, we would never be able to fly an airplane. So if those people who invented all of those amazing things that we just use every day without thinking, if they had thought to themselves, oh, it hasn't been done before, so why could I do it? I mean, we'd never have phones, we'd never have computers. There was always someone who had to start something, and perhaps you can be the person to start something new. So just think about it that way. So you can debunk the excuses. And this is another exercise that we have in your workbook. So you are to create your own catalogue of excuses and then write out a rebuttal. So this is very similar to talking to your fear, but it is just really honing in on specific issues here. So for instance, it will be difficult. It's like, I have the ability to overcome any obstacles, and this creates just a really positive mantra that you can say to yourself whenever you have the thought of it would be difficult pop into your head. For instance, an example for it is risky. The only risk is playing safe and not knowing what I'm truly capable of. It will take too long. Life is long and I'd rather spend my time doing what I love. And so on and so forth. So you can make your way throughout your own catalogue of excuses and remind yourself of them whenever you catch yourself thinking and being in excuse land. The next activity that we can do to make over your mind is to look to the past. So I want you to make a list. We can think about all the challenges you've overcome in your life. If you can't think that far, maybe just the last 12 months. But I'm sure there have been many challenges that you've overcome. You haven't just cruised through life without anything really happening to you. If you have, give me a call, but you would be a very rare species. So perhaps there was an illness that you overcame. There was a really tough project that you had to work on at work. Maybe you had to learn something that was really challenging when you were studying or as part of your work. Physical challenges, maybe you decided to run a marathon or do some any long distance endurance type of thing. Anything at all that you can think of. If you've had a baby, first year of having a baby, everybody tells me is the hardest. Like, if you can get through that, then like I applaud every single person who is a parent, because from what I've seen, it's rewarding, but it's definitely not an easy thing. And so start to think about any challenges that you've overcome and write them down. Anything that you've learnt, anything that you learnt about yourself, about the world, about how to interact with people. Write that down. Any studies you've done, books you've read, documentaries you've watched, like the things that you've learnt. Something that you at first thought was unachievable, but you went ahead and did it anyway. Write that down. Things that you thought was a wall in front of you, but then you managed to push that wall down and go ahead and achieve it. Any special wins that you've experienced. Maybe you got some award or accolade. Maybe you just felt really good after you did something and just like really positive and happy in yourself. And skills or qualities that you have that helped you with any of this along the way. So write all of this down, and sometimes it's helpful to stick it next to your bed so you can look at it when you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, to put you in that frame of mind of things that you've actually already done. Or maybe you just tuck it away in a book, and if you're feeling really low, you can pull it out and have a look at things. I started to keep a constant list a couple of years ago on the advice of somebody of business wins. So if anybody has started their own business, you'll know that while it does seem really like it's such a glamorous idea, it can be pretty tough at times, and forget all the good stuff. And so this is something that I made a list like this, and then I just now keep a running list on my computer. I just have a file on my computer, and so if something really good happens, then I just record it. So in those moments where I'm feeling like things aren't going so great, or they're not moving as fast as I would want them to, I can look back and be like, but I've actually done all these things and I've achieved it as well. And I reward myself with stickers daily because I realized last year that I have an inner child who loves stickers and sticker reward charts. Whenever I do something that's an action related to my goals, I give myself a sticker. So then I can have this visual of everything that I've done, and that makes me feel good as well. So it's all about starting to keep tabs on the good things. So your mind starts to look for the good things and starts to make that quick connection to it rather than focusing on the negative thoughts. And so that is another exercise for you. So it's a really useful thing to turn down the noise of your inner critic by looking at this list, because it's an instant reminder of all the good stuff. Because often when you're caught up in all those negative thoughts, you forget all the good stuff. So having this physical list in front of you can be really helpful and can be a really good pick-me-up. Now this next one, this is one of my favorites. So it is EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's sometimes known as tapping. And it's a really great way to work through negative thoughts or blocks as well. So if you're finding that writing things down, isn't quite helping, then you can just move through things a little bit easier with this. And so this, I don't know, I haven't, they've done some studies into it, they're looking at it, but it's just this really incredible technique. So you tap on different meridian points. So this relates to, say, traditional Chinese medicine, where they say that meridians, which show these energy lines, run through your body, and they all relate to different organs and emotions and things like that. So you tap on different points while saying statements such as, even though I feel crap, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And by doing this, you begin to rewire your brain. Don't ask me about the complete science behind it. All I know is that it has worked for me. And it's just a really good way to reaffirm that you love and accept yourself as well. So I'm going to take you through a round of tapping. I put the instructions for this in the workbook, and also some links to YouTube videos by a guy called Brad Yates, who I feel has really, really good scripts to follow. And he has things that relating to all sorts of things: self-esteem, relationships, money, whatever you can think of. Like if you type in like tapping for inner critic, something will come up. So we're just going to work through all of those like excuses that I listed before, and I will show you where to tap. So just follow me with this. So we start on what they call the karate chop point. Then we have top of the head, in between the eyebrows, side, under the eyes, just on the top lip, on your chin, on your chest, under the arm, and with your wrists together. So it goes like this. Take a deep breath and just repeat the statement after me. Even though I feel this thing will be difficult, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though this thing feels risky, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though this will take too long, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I feel too old to do this, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I don't deserve this, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I don't know how to do this, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I don't have time to do this, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I'm too scared to do this, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though this has never been done before, I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Take a deep breath. So that's just a quick introduction to tapping. And I don't know about you, but even just doing that now myself just calmed down all the circuits in my body. It's just this really relaxing, non-invasive method. It's not like acupuncture where you're sticking pins into yourself, or having someone do that to you. So again, like, I do encourage you to use this. You know, you can kind of be discreet. Sometimes even if you're out in public, you can just tap the karate chop point and just do that over and over. That's still really beneficial. You don't have to do the whole gamut of tapping points. And so yeah, it's something that just really calms down the nervous system, and starts to change the brain a little bit and have it believe that you're great, which you are. All right, so moving on to the next tip, which will start to help rewire your mind to take you away from fear and lack, which is gratitude. Now, again, your brain can't think of something negative and positive at the same time. It just can't. It just likes to. It can only really hold one track at a time. The idea of multitasking, I feel, is a little bit wrong, because you're still only doing one thing at a time, and it just gets too overwhelming. So filling your brain with more positive stuff actually helps you look for the positives in life with more ease. So the idea of a gratitude practice is that you look for things to be grateful for. And, most people say 3 things a day. If you want to do this long term, it's enough. It's just as simple as a few things a day. And it doesn't have to be like big things. It can be finding a good car park. It can be getting a seat on the train. It can be like right now it is raining outside and the smell of rain is really amazing. And I'm safe and warm and dry inside, so I'm grateful for that. So it can be like really simple things. It can be you go to the supermarket to buy something and it's on special. Great, you can be grateful for that. So every year I've started to run the 21 Days of Gratitude in December, and it's just I ask people to do 10 things a day because making it a little bit of a challenge. It really helps, and then we drop back to the 3 when you're just in normal time. But I like to do it in December, especially because it's a busy time leading up to the holidays where everybody is thinking about buying presents and socializing with people that they might not necessarily want to socialize with, and having fights in car parks and all sorts of things. So it's about, seeing the good in the world each day, which will help keep you in a really nice place. And this was an email that I received from someone about halfway through. And she said, I've noticed a pretty profound improvement in my mood and general well-being over the last 13 days with this gratitude practice. It's pretty remarkable. I even had a moment today of just profound gratitude for something really simple. I was walking up a big hill near work and noticed my heart pumping hard and my breath picking up as I was striding up the hill, and felt a huge sense of gratitude for my body and how it responded to me picking up the pace, marveling at its way of working. And then I had a sense of gratitude for the gratitude, which he called inceptitude. So it's just an example of showing you, rather than take my word for it, this came from somebody else, just how just going through this gratitude practice helped to just have amazing joy in her day just for walking up a hill, and having gratitude about her body and what it could do. So this is something that I encourage you to start getting down 3 things each day. You might want to wake up in the morning and do it, so you start the day feeling really positive on that, or before you go to sleep is also really handy. Write it down is really nice, because then you can flick through it, at the end of the month or the year, and just see all the things that you've been grateful for. And again, it's just about pulling all those positives into it. And you can write down things that you're grateful for about yourself, because sometimes I'll write down things that I'm grateful for from my day, and then I'll do another 3 of things that I really appreciate about myself or was really proud that I did that day. And so again, it's really feeding that whole positive self-esteem part of it, and turning down that inner critic noise, because you're focusing and finding all the good that is happening and that you can do. So there's no rules about what you can put on your list. Look, I put the smell of rain down on the example before it was even raining. So I must have known that it would be raining when I was doing this presentation. So you can be grateful for people, animals, yourself, anything. The sky, like seeing a rainbow, anything that makes you feel good. And that is positive, you can put down on your gratitude list. And from that, we're going to talk about this theme of I already have it. So if you've got any particular goals that you are working towards, or there are these things that you want in your life, I have this really broad concept for you, which is that you already have a lot of what you want. And you might just be going, Tanya, that's just not true. If I wanted it, it would be right here beside me and I wouldn't be asking for it anymore. But you have a lot of qualities that you want already. So if you look back at any goals that you have set for yourself or any desires, think about where you might already have that quality, feeling, or experience in your life. So for instance, maybe one of your goals is that you want to spend more time in nature. You want to go hiking more, but you just find it really difficult because you don't have the time. And so I'm inviting you to look at the ways that you have nature in your life already. So maybe you already have fresh flowers on your desk and you can see the trees outside your window and you can walk in a park. And so you've already got this experience of spending time in nature, And naturally, when you're looking for those positive experiences of where this is in your life, you'll start to cultivate more of it. And the idea of going hiking, it'll feel more natural. More job-related one, so one that's very big for people. So I want a more creative job. And then it's like, okay, well, where do I have creativity in my life already? I have a space in my house set up for my art. I'm learning to play the ukulele. So you've got that creative musical thing there. And, you know, visit galleries to soak up the creative atmosphere. And so enjoying creativity in different areas of your life might do a few things. It might make you feel like you're fulfilled creatively already. So you might not necessarily want to seek a more creative job because you're seeing where it is around you, and how it fills your life in that way. Or maybe surrounding yourself with this creativity will automatically lead you to open up and discover a more creative job there. And people might recognize that even more. So, you know, that little creative streak. So when you go for an interview or whatever, it shines through more naturally. I want a relationship. So again, another big one where people, single people want a partner. This happens a lot in workshops when I ask people to write down their goals. Relationship definitely comes up with at least one person, if not half the group. And yeah, this is one that it's a type of goal where it's not as cut and dry as something which has an end point, like training for a sporting event or you know, seeking another job, because there's all these other factors in play. But if you think about the qualities that you want from a relationship and look and see where that already exists in your life, you can start to really enjoy that you do have the people around that you can confide in and laugh with and have great hugs from, and have that closeness and that support, and everything that you've wanted in a relationship, see where that already exists in your life, and start to really appreciate that. And once again you start to see all of that goodness and love with you, then, you know, it can happen that you attract a significant other into your life. So, but it's also, it takes the need out of it. So when you're feeling really needy that you want a relationship, you find that nobody comes knocking on your door. But when you're feeling really good and not needy, then suddenly everybody's bringing you up for a date. And so it's that same thing with any goal or desire that you have. When you take the neediness vibe out of your wants, it takes the pressure off, because you're already seeing, you know, where you've got the time for nature, where you've got creativity in your life, where you've got all that love and support in your life. And so it doesn't feel like you've got such a deadline to actually reach this thing, because you're seeing where it already exists in your life. So again, it's related to a gratitude practice where you start noticing the good in your life and appreciating it, the more of it flows your way. And like I said, your brain can't be positive and negative at the same time. So we're just slowly tuning it more to the grateful, the what you already have rather than the what you don't have. I'm just going to quickly run through working with mindset nasties. So like I said, these are the top 3 things that I find that people, you know, go through. So number 1, comparison-itis. So I think we've all had this at some point in our lives. So everybody else I know has X, Y, and Z, and I don't. Therefore, I'm a failure or something must be wrong with me. And it is this thing where you're seeing what you want with everybody else, but not in your life. And my solution is to be happy for others. So it's to be really pleased about, you know, a friend who gets engaged or gets a new job, and throw out those positive vibes, because again, you're creating that positivity and that really nice energy. And it works, you know, if I am really happy for a friend who, you know, has a new relationship or gets married or whatever, suddenly I get asked out on a date myself. If I have a friend who has a really big win in her business, and you know, you can get kind of jealous, but then if I'm just really happy for her and all the work that she put into it, then suddenly I start to see things happening for myself. It's you know, your like attracts like, and so if you're filling your brain up with all of these positive thoughts and feelings, then it comes back to you. And so that's my solution for comparisonitis. Stop comparing and be happy for other people. And, you know, you never know what's going on in their lives. You never really know what's underneath the surface with other people too. So just because it looks good doesn't mean that they're necessarily happy. Maybe they're envious of something that you have. Who knows? The second mindset nasty is I'm not where I want to be itis. So again, you're so focused on the end goal that you haven't achieved it yet, and you forget everything that you've done up until that point. So this is where your list of all the things that you've achieved comes in handy. So like I said, write down your wins and be focused on where you are now and what you're going through and what you're learning, because you know, it's fine, set goals. I'm just a big advocate for setting goals, and everybody should do it, but it's also just as important to appreciate where you are on the journey, where you are perhaps in your degree, where you are in your career, where you are in your relationships. Be focused on the now and really appreciate that, because I definitely have had it in the past where I was so determined to reach the top of that mountain without setting any foundations or even enjoying where I was at that point in my life. And I just feel a little bit of regret for a lot of it, because I didn't really get to enjoy that time in my life because I was just so focused on reaching the next job or whatever it was, and I wasn't focusing on the present. So little personal tip there for you. Practice gratitude as well, because that will bring you back to the now, and that whole mindfulness type of thing will you know, you'd be grateful for everything that you've worked on, and all the achievements up until that point as well. And all of this just creates a sense of detachment. So I was having a discussion with a friend today as well about this, that you know, you have to really want something but also be able to let it go. So that's where the activity of aligning to your goals and working out where it already exists in your life helps create a sense of detachment, because you know where you want to go and you know what you want to achieve, but you don't have that neediness for it as well. So when you're feeling down and like you're not where you want to be, focus on all of these things here. And then there is this other big one, which is I can't tell anyone because no one will understand, or worse, they'll think I'm a failure-itis. I feel like a lot of people keep things inside and they're afraid to mention it to others. You know, everyone's got this insta perfect life on social media, and so it creates this false idea that everybody's life is perfect, and yours isn't. But you know, you have to remember that they're not showing the fights or the shitty feelings so much. They're just showing like the really good photo with a filter on it, and so I feel like this is a bit of a bad thing, because it's actually not it's not real anymore. People aren't really talking about their feelings. And that's why I also like to just talk about my own experiences as well, because I find it helps people, even if you haven't experienced something similar, but just to know that people have had their down times. You know, I've had my crying on the floor moments. And I think everybody has. We're just humans. But we feel like we can't share this with people. But that is my solution to you, is to share, is to talk about it, you know, with your friends or whatever it is that you've got with you. I find I attend a women's circle every month, and that's a really good space to share because it's really safe. There's a structure. Everybody has a turn to speak. And it's really amazing just to see how similar we really are. And that definitely does help you feel less alone in your feelings as well. And I think everybody just wants people to share. They just want people to share. Yeah, rather than put a smile on your face every day and say that you're fine. If you're not feeling fine, then tell somebody. Because they won't think that you're a failure. They'll just, if they're a really good friend, they'll just appreciate you for who you are and give you the support that you need in that moment. And then it'll come a time when it will be reversed and you'll be able to give them support because they'll feel comfortable sharing with you. So that's my solution for that. And just quickly, because we've just hit over an hour, so it's just some time management tips that I find really useful. So there's a few different versions here. Sometimes I'll jump between them. Some days I might do like this first one, and then another day I might do another one from the list, just depending on how I feel. I'm one of these people who, you know, needs to change things up a bit, including where I'm working from as well, but everybody's different. So that's why I have all these options for you. So it's this whole idea. First one is just to write your linear list of, you know, do I have to do this, this, and this, and this? If you work out roughly how long it will take you to do each item and then prioritize from most important to least important. And then you just go through the list, completing things in the order you set, and make sure you stick to the time you've allocated. So if you said that you're going to take 10 minutes to do something, make sure you take 10 minutes, not 20. You know, it helps you get through things and structure your day in that way. Sometimes things might run over time, but at least you're giving yourself, you know, a bit of a realistic way in how your day will look. Yeah, so that's just the first one. There's also this concept called eating the frog, and the idea behind this is that eating a frog is really, really difficult. So a live frog, not, you know, the cooked French ones. So the idea is that you have your list and you'll do the most difficult thing first, that phone call that you don't want to make and you've been dreading, writing that email. Maybe you need to write a report that you don't really want to do. So once you get that off your list, it's out of the way and it just feels easier to do the rest of the things. And yeah, so you, instead of spending the whole day dreading that thing on your list, you can just do it and get it over and done with. But there are other days where you just can't eat that frog straight up. And so in this instance, I like to do what's called low-hanging fruit, where you just do a few of the easier tasks just to get some momentum and just to feel good that you've ticked things off the list, and then you can go eat that frog and go into the more time-consuming things. The procrastination game is something that I have played with myself a lot. So say you've got your list, 5 things, and making that phone call is on there, and you're like, oh no, I can't bring myself to make that phone call. I'll do something else. And the second time you look at your list, you're like, nah, still don't want to do the phone call, or do something else. Then the third time you look at your list, you have to make that phone call. So it's just a little game you play with yourself. You know, it's giving you a little bit of a deadline, but a little bit of a play just to work within it. So those are just 4 different ways of tackling a to-do list, which you might find helpful. And then just to wrap up, just some things if it all feels too hard when you're there and you're going for your goals, but then you're just crashing on the couch and falling over and you're like, why am I doing this? Why did I do that? Um, the first tip I have for you is to acknowledge the resistance. So just go, hey, look, I'm finding this really hard for these reasons. Maybe write a letter to the resistance about why you're finding this particular stage of the project difficult. But just go, okay, this is feeling tough right now, and I'm okay with that. Just, have that there. Again, ask yourself why you feel this way, and journal it. Get it out of your system. I'm a big fan of journaling, of writing. If you're not someone who likes to write things down, you can always have a voice memo on your phone where you're just talking to your phone and ramble for 10 minutes, and then sometimes listening back to it, you can get some clarity around the real reasons behind it. And then you can work through it. Get a buddy on your side. So someone who will keep you accountable to things, and they can ask you to check in on you. I know I have a friend, and she will often message me and be like, hey, I'm really going to I want to do this fun run, get my fitness up, or I want to go to the gym 3 times a week, whatever it is. Can you message me once a week and ask me how it's going? So it's that thing of her knowing that I'll be checking up on her helps keep her accountable. But if she's having a rough week, then she can be like, I'm having a rough week, and then we can chat about it and be like, well, why are you finding it really tough this week, and what's going on for you, and support her through it. So if you find a good accountability buddy, then keep them on speed dial. Tap it out. So do your tapping, especially after you've done your journaling and you've found the core reasons behind how you're feeling the way you are and why. So rewire your thought patterns in that way, and reconnect with your initial vision. So think about why you wanted to do something in the first place, why you wanted to study the thing you're studying, train for that event, go for that job. Why were the reasons? What are the reasons behind it, and how did the outcome want to make you feel as well? So it can also help to visualize already having achieved your goal and seeing what feelings might come up for you. So whether it's proud or excited, or just this really awesome feeling of being in love, maybe. So that can help you just go back and understand why you're on this big, crazy, amazing journey. Because definitely something's like a few years in the making. It can be really, sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? So it's just really helpful to reconnect with your initial vision, and then that can give you the motivation to continue. Exercise is also a really good way to help. So I always say moving your body moves your mind and moves your mood. Even if it's just a walk around the block. My sister-in-law says you never regret a walk. So just get out there, get some fresh air, get the body moving, and that can help you when you're feeling a bit down on yourself and maybe a bit stuck in the middle of the project and you're not quite sure where to go next. Like just exercising and moving your body can help you just move the energy and the thoughts through your body. And sometimes you need what I call a hard reset or a circuit breaker. So sometimes things can be really tough, and maybe you just need to have a day off and go do something fun. There was a day last year when I was working on putting together my first online course. I had a friend who's an artist, and she was working on some pieces for a show, and we were both quite busy and stressed out. And then we were just like, we need a day off. And so we got in the car and went on a road trip for the day, and it was really good because it just pulled us out of that feeling of stuckness. And we had some fun, and we got everything we wanted off our chests to each other. And then we got back home and we're like, oh, I feel a bit refreshed and energized, and we were both able to continue our projects, and I think they were probably better off for it. So make sure you're not doing it as a means of procrastination, but you're actually doing it as a gift to yourself as well. So yeah, if you are feeling that life is getting on top of you, then sometimes stepping away for a little bit can be really useful. And also remember to have celebration points along the way, especially if something is taking a really long time to come to fruition. So or if you've seen my Great Goals Masterclass, I'll talk about setting actions and about how along the way you have these mini celebration points or milestones where you can stop and acknowledge everything that you've done up until that point. Give yourself something nice, a little pamper day or whatever it is, and then continue on. And that can help you through a long project. So we've come to the end. We've run a little bit over time, but thank you for watching. And do have the Great Goals Masterclass up available as well if you wanted to check that out. That's in the resources part of my website. And then I'll be doing these on the first Wednesday of each month, and different topics each time, so just keep an eye out for those. So thank you, and thanks for watching. So I am just going to go back into the screen. I'm going to stop recording, and then I see there's a chat. We'll have a chat